All right, we have a bunch of people on the webinar today, so let's get started. I'm DJ, the head of marketing at Entytle. First off, thank you for joining us today. We expect the event runtime to be close to 40 minutes. So with that, let's get going. So with that, let me go ahead and introduce the speakers for today. First off is Vivek Joshi. Vivek is the CEO and founder of Entytle. He has decades of experience working on both sides of the industrial equation. He's passionate about all things install base and simplifying the install base workflows to give customer-facing OEM teams an opportunity to do more with less. He's also the founder of Industry Next Community, which was designed to help industry leaders share and learn from each other. We also have with us today Colin Palmer, who is our global leader of customer success. He's responsible for some of the larger customer verticals, ranging from food and packaging, pumps, machining, processing, and rotating equipment. He comes from a technology background, and his expertise is helping our customers optimize the usage of sales and service solutions. Additionally, and in the context of this event, he has been a sales development exec at Entytle, so he's well qualified to consult and help OEMs transition from reactive to proactive aftermarket sales and service workflows using Entytle. And we have JW Simmons, our sales development rep. He's probably spoken to thousands of OEM leaders in the last 18 months, understanding what works for them and what doesn't. He leads our prospecting activities and is at the forefront of our prospecting. Also comes from a SaaS background. He has incorporated several learnings from his sales experience that he would be sharing with us today. So with those introductions, let me go ahead and hand it over to Vivek.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, as to where you might be in different parts of the world. This is Vivek. Hopefully you guys can see me on screen. I've got my camera on, my voice on. Just before we get started, as DJ said, it's going to be about 40 minutes runtime. The idea being about to 11:30 Central, 12:30 Eastern, get through the prepared portion of the presentation and leave some time for Q&A. Just before we get started, most of you know us. I think I'm looking at the attendee list and I see a lot of familiar faces on the participant list, so most of you know us, but we're a software as a service company that I founded about eight and a half years ago, because like many of you, I was frustrated with the fact that I could not get a clean and simple way to prospect and sell to my install base. And so over time, this company has grown really nicely. We're now based in India and here. We got customers in Europe and in the US primarily, and we're excited by the growth we're seeing ahead of us, not just for ourselves, but for many of our customers who have benefited tremendously from the solution we built for them. With that, I want to get into some of the background for why we think this webinar might be useful to you. Next page, please, Colin. Before I go any further, by the way, we always like to start our webinars with a couple of questions, and these are really relevant because, you know, we've had tons of experiences, not just in the last 8.5 years of Entytle, but as DJ said, I've had decades of experience doing this stuff, and you know, it's been a fascinating journey to watch what people do or don't do at prospecting. So there's 3 questions out here. DJ is going to trigger the poll in a second. We're going to let this run for maybe a couple of minutes in the background. So DJ, if you don't mind clicking on the poll, that'd be great. I want to get this going soon. Is the poll on, DJ?
Yes, Vivek, I'm just about to trigger it. There are 3 questions for this poll. They should be on your screen right now. And you can find the 3rd question if you were to scroll down. So you can see the first 2 questions, and then there's a 3rd one there.
Perfect. Thank you. So next page, please, Colin. So while you guys are responding to this poll question, I'll come back to it later. But you know, when I was thinking about a webinar that might be beneficial to a lot of people, I started thinking about myself 10 years ago before I started Entytle, and I think about many of you today sitting in the audience. And here's what I think will be. I think if I were you, this is what I would want to know, right? You know, are there things out there that can help me and my team get better? And the short answer is yes. You know, aftermarket prospecting is hard, but there's lots of interesting stuff out there that you can use. And we've always talked of this old adage of people, process, and tools, and getting them to work in unison is really important. And if there's one thing I want to leave you with, it's this whole notion of people. We all know it, but Lord Almighty, the experiences we've had, enough to write a book about it. But it's really, you know, as I say, when push comes to shove, bet on the people, or bet on the right people. So, you know, we'll talk more about this in the next few slides as we go through this. So with that, Colin, next slide, please. So when you think about aftermarket, the reason I started Entytle is, like many of you, I was a frustrated aftermarket sales leader, service leader, business leader, right? We knew the potential is huge, and there's so many different use cases that we've seen, so many different ways to make money in the aftermarket, right? As a salesperson, there's all kinds of things you can do. There are many use cases, there are many ways to kind of make money from all the way from upgrades and mods, warranties and service contracts. Service technician, you want to be able to cross-sell, upsell. when you walk out into the field. And if you're a marketing person, you won't be able to target very precisely, and you start doing this. So the potential is really huge. We all know that. So the next slide, please. When you start thinking of the potential, the problem that starts that we all start facing is this stuff is really, really hard. When I think of some of the customers we worked with, it's extraordinary. Like you have 100, 200,000 customers in the field. You have all kinds of different generations of assets and equipment that's sitting out there. You have all kinds of different applications, if you may, right? So the refinery runs it different from the power utility that runs it different from the food packaging plant. And so when you start thinking about the complexity of your product on top of that, with a very complicated bills of materials with parts and service intervals being different for different things, man, it's a complete nightmare, right? So this stuff is really hard. And what we've seen make it even harder for everybody, if you don't mind the next slide, Colin, is that what our experience has been that most aftermarket sales teams today lack in sales maturity. I know this is very presumptuous of me to say that, but the experience we've seen is that most companies they have more will than they have skill in terms of the management capabilities, in terms of what they want to get done. And when you start trying to piece together the people and the process and technologies, the collective maturity of that sales process is actually kind of low. So over the last year or two, we've started introducing this whole notion of sales maturity, which is level one, which is purely reactive. You're waiting for the phone to ring. You really don't cross-sell, upsell. It's just serving the order where it is, all the way to nirvana, as I call it, which is level four, which is you're proactive, you're preemptive, you're cross-selling, your people are all armed with the right information. You have a very dedicated platform and so on and so forth. So the fact of the matter is that in addition to the job being hard, given the kinds of environment we operate in, and the fact that you have the maturity issue, it's a bit of a challenge, right? So that's the kind of things we see as day-to-day. Next slide, please, Colin. So when you take these two challenges and put them in place, we think there's three pillars of growth that we want to share with you that are not uncommon, but Colin's going to take you forward and kind of expand on some of these things we see out here. So Colin, over to you.
All right, I think my video is showing, hey, everybody, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're at. Thanks, Vivek, for setting up the context of the conversation. And DJ, as always, you do a great job of doing introductions for our team members. So just to kind of play off of what DJ was saying, I've been at Entytle for about 4 years now, and I started off in the same role that JW's in, an SDR role or a sales development role. And that role is primarily doing a ton of prospecting and teeing off different deals or meetings for the rest of my sales team to close. I've been a part of the discovery process and the full cycle sales as well. And most recently, for the past 3 years, I've been working as a customer success manager. So working directly with my customers. So I'd like to say I've talked to a majority of manufacturers. I've talked to the thousands of people that JW and Vivek have, and really, we came up to this consensus after working and speaking with a lot of manufacturers, or a majority, is that there is this hindrance of having an aftermarket prospecting engine, or really going out and doing this prospecting themselves. And I think these three pillars of growth should resonate with most people here: people, process, and technology. There needs to be some kind of unison together to get things accomplished, especially when it comes to driving proactive sales, or just sales in general, or other processes as well. And when we begin to talk to manufacturing companies, these things seem to mostly be islands. They don't talk to each other at all. So I mean, looking at the process and starting with that, I'll move counterclockwise here. Is most of the OEMs that we've talked to have traditionally just been focused on new equipment sales. And that's where a lot of resources have been poured into, either with technology or with marketing, helping back them up. The other problem is they've focused a lot on their top customers and have really relied on that business, and have hoped that business trickles down into the aftermarket business, and really haven't gone below their top 20% customers and hit the 80%, or what we like to call the middle 60, and ripen them and target them. There's been some lack of digital marketing strategies, understanding the life cycle of where a customer might be it if they need a particular part kits at the end of a service contract, the equipment's obsolete or needs some kind of upgrade. And then really a commonality is there's not actually any type of purpose aftermarket built team to go after new business and knock on different doors to start generating those leads and handing them off, which will take me to the people itself. Traditionally, aftermarket sales has been more of an order taking type of role. I mean, they've been in these roles for decades, if not centuries, or a century for some companies. They've just handled RFQs, RFPs, simply just saying, okay. I mean, you can look at it as a drive-through comparison. They're not asking you if you want to supersize your meal, if that exists, or biggie size it, or asking if you want fries with your burger, for example. They're just don't have that particular type of skill set and aren't necessarily built towards that. There are definitely not anomalies, but certain people that do go above and beyond that can do that. But the theme is it's been more of an order taking role. We have seen manufacturing companies try and hire sales managers to do some type of change management within their organization to help them start doing outbound sales. And unfortunately, it hasn't been as much success just because that personality has been in that role for such a long time that it hasn't progressed since then. And then as far as technology goes, I mean, aftermarket or manufacturing companies have a lot of different types of database systems. So it's hard to actually sell to your end user customers. I mean, the functions are siloed when it comes to selling aftermarket. It could be strictly services, parts, new equipment, et cetera. And each person is having to dive into some kind of different database system that doesn't work up in a unison view. And some of them don't have licenses. They don't have a thing like an aftermarket CRM or an install-based platform to where you can search a customer, see what's installed there, see what kind of parts transactions have happened or they've purchased, what kind of services that they've had, or any kind of automation in terms of drumming up these opportunities. But there is hope for everybody. What we use, what other software companies use, and what some of our customers have begun to do is use a proven, repeatable, scalable process. I have it broken down into these 4 different chevrons here. I mean, I'm sure you could extend it out and make it 7 different things, but I think this kind of brings in the general theme and ideology of what you can do to begin to pursue this process. Again, you're going to hear this a lot as I talk. This is something that we do. This is something that other software companies do, other industries, our customers, and we've actually taken this approach and done these specific actions for customers as a service to help drum up new business. So it begins with ripening a prospect. You need to start somewhere. Typically, aftermarket is going to be what is it that what part of the life cycle is my customer in? Who to call? Of course, you need somebody to call. Warming up the patch, sending out different types of channels of communications to let them know that you exist or that you have an offering, and then what to actually offer. So right offer, right time, right price. And so I will start off and dig into some of these here. It all begins with ripening the prospect, especially if this is going to be relevant for any kind of aftermarket sales. Aftermarket sales are, of course, with your existing install base. And so the example I have here is, this is a screenshot from Entytle, actually, in the campaign. It's up here at the top. I'm hovering my cursor around it. If you can see it, it's a simple upgrade, a particular type of equipment to an Aqua Pro 1000. The idea behind this is the other equipment has been obsolete. This in turn gives me about 600 different leads for my sales teams to go target. I mean, it can be other different things such as kits, services, retrofits, etc. Coming from a technology standpoint or winning new customers, I'm sure this resonates with other manufacturing companies, is we build out specific profiles for people that we want to target. So for example, looking at the size of the company, the complexity of the machines, as well as the different types of teams. We've actually started talking to some other customers about helping them find new customers as well. So ripening new prospects for them, as well as looking at developing new dealership partners or channel partners for some of them. That's seemed to be a daunting task at hand. So there's different ways to look at ripening the prospect. I think most relevant to the install base is selling to current customers that you have. And so starting with that offer and then moving to next, who do I call? I think everybody really suffers from this, is CRM data is typically going to be outdated, stale, or incomplete. And I have up here a few sets of different types of tools that we use personally, that some of our other customers use, and that we've used for our customers to help them find out who to call. I mean, you have resources like LinkedIn, a bunch of different filtering that you can search through and find the targeted person. I'm using Vivek as an example. What our CTO is underneath this other screen image, but I put in a specific geography, company, and seniority level. And quickly I was able to find a target list. I mean, we do this all the time, search for people with aftermarket titles or sales or business unit owners. Another really good resource is ZoomInfo. If nobody's ever heard of this, I recommend checking it out. This is not a paid advertisement by any chance. This will give you the ability, again, to filter in. You can look at specific addresses and you can find people, their direct numbers, their mobile numbers, their emails, sometimes it's their personal emails. There's other data sources like this that are relevant to OEMs that we've worked with and have heard our other customers use. There's Dun & Bradstreet. There's also IRR, and both of these not only can give you different types of contacts, but they can also give you a timeline of when people are going to begin starting to do bidding on projects, so you can start reaching out proactively to see if they need a particular type of equipment. These other two data sources are just using Google. Again, Entytle CEO Vivek Joshi pops up here immediately. I was actually working on a contact enrichment service for one of our customers, and I couldn't find them in LinkedIn and ZoomInfo. So I took the name of the company or the account that I was trying to search and the location, and then was able to find information that way. It's not going to happen 100% of the time, but it's a good quick resource. I mean, this is something free. Obviously, you're paying for internet, but it's a good resource. And then you can go completely old school. This is just a screenshot off of Google with a phone number. I think there's a lot of reluctance on reaching out to some people and using that method and not going through some kind of technology or hiding behind an email. But my experience, the team that I helped build here to drive contact enrichment for our customers, they're actually pretty open and honest or want to talk to you. I mean, I was invited to go tour a plant as a representative of the customers that we were doing this for. And they were very helpful in terms of trying to gear us and find us the right person. So those are just some examples of different types of tools that you can use. And just, it's simpler than you think. You just need to have the person to do it. And so with that being said, I'm going to toss it off over to JW.
Perfect. Thank you, Colin. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Quick note on that last slide. If I've reached out to you in the past, most likely got your email and phone number off of ZoomInfo there. So again, good afternoon, everyone. JW here, SDR with Entytle for the last year and a half. Actually have come from a background in business development and small business sales. So prospecting has really been a part of my career thus far in every role that I've held. One of the great things about working for a small company like Entytle is that you oftentimes get to apply, your skill set from your original job description to other areas of the business. So I've been fortunate to be, a lead prospector for Entitle's business, but also I've been a part of a number of customer-related prospecting projects and logistics, and actually providing some results to those. So when Vivek approached me, about doing this event, one of the first things I started thinking about was how we at Entytle actually warm up our patch, our prospects, and many of these tactics can be applied to other software businesses and OEMs alike. So the first part of this slide is the screenshot of what a sales cadence or sales sequence looks like that I've taken advantage of. It combines a multi-channel approach to actually engaging with the prospect. So you'll see on there's manual touch points. There are some social touch points, some outbound calls, and then some automated emails. So this is a sequence type that I use on kind of mid-level prospects for us. And I kind of have three groups that I go through. There's the mid-level, then there's kind of baseline outreach, where the baseline prospects get automated messaging primarily, and or they get some calls mixed in. And then we've had great success with what we call the Goldilocks approach. So it's an incredibly ripe account. We've found the perfect person or perfect small group of people to call. And that outreach approach, that sequence is comprised of just a few manual emails, all meant to be highly tailored, highly customized, and then calls in between, and the social touches in between those as just another method to get out my name, our name in front of them, and make sure they know that we exist. If you look over to the right side of the slide, you'll see there's a screenshot from some of the blogs that we post. We also like to hold events like this, at least once a month. And sharing articles is what I've found to be just a very frictionless and quote unquote disarming way to engage with your prospects. It's also a great way that we engage with our customers. So when we come across some piece of literature or any kind of info that we've either written or read that relates to a prospect, relates to a customer, it's a pain point they've talked about. It's even a great way to restart conversations with folks you haven't spoken with in a long time. Send them a friendly article and just let them know that you're thinking of them, and it shows you're engaged in getting a hold of them and keeping them engaged with you. And then lastly, on the bottom, there's the banner for this event. If you're an Insights user, you've seen this banner the last couple of weeks. If you're been to the website, you've seen this banner. You've likely seen it in email signatures. And to just tie that banner into the sequences, the more people you're connected with on LinkedIn that are in your industry, in your market, the more people you're connected with and the more stuff you share on LinkedIn, that algorithm works magically to make sure that your content gets in front of your prospects. Moving on. So the last part of the process, really, you have your right prospect, you know who you're calling, the patch is warm. Now is the perfect storm of three main things: the right offer, right time, right price. Originally, a couple slides ago, Colin showed kind of this Aqua Pro 1000 upgrade campaign. And really the only way to know that's possible is to be in tune with the customer lifecycle journey. So this can be applied to a number of other things, other upgrades, service contracts, warranties, and even, parts kits and replacements. You could, for example, have a piece of equipment that's been installed for 7 years and they haven't purchased a particular part or part kit that was due in the time frame from when they purchased it to now. And so, really what we're showcasing here with an aftermarket CRM or the right kind of tools for your offer is essentially you have predictive opportunities based on algorithms. You run these campaigns and it empowers you as the OEM to engage with your customers or engage with your prospects in a targeted manner, as opposed to a large blanket or casting a wide net sort of approach. So lastly, you're out of the process now. The people you need to be involved. So really the question is, what tools, what technology can you use today? So we broke this up into 4 main categories that we have used to find success, and hopefully some of you are familiar with these. First and foremost, a CRM is paramount in tracking your contact data. It's very important to have that data, have it up to date, continually update it. We like to harp on data quality, and bad data in is bad data out. We use HubSpot at Entytle. I love it. It gives you the opportunity to actually build and track sequences like I showed a couple slides ago, and essentially share it across all your stakeholders. And, someone who comes from an educational background in finance, actually diving into the numbers and analytics is really important to me. So something like HubSpot gives you the opportunity to see, okay, what part of my sequence is working really well? Are my subject lines hitting? Is my content hitting? Is my delivery rate down? Am I getting a lot of bounces lately? These things all obviously help you become more successful in truly engaging in your prospect list. Moving over to third-party data tools, I'll say it again. If I've reached out to you in the past, I likely got your phone or email from ZoomInfo. There are a number of them out there. Many of them are great. It never hurts to have a couple to cross-check for accuracy. And one of the great things about ZoomInfo as well is it's not just good for general outreach, but you can apply it in research projects. For example, say you're a pump manufacturer and you have a pool of accounts, say, that have only ever transacted with you one time. You've got a right batch. You want to identify the who to call now. You can use your third-party data sources to, say, find specific technicians, maintenance managers, plant engineers, all the people who would be hands-on with equipment that you might have sold 5 or 7, 10 plus years ago, and can actually answer your questions on, is this equipment still in use? Was these parts ever purchased somewhere else? Can we provide any service to you now? And actually go and target those people in a more targeted manner. And then lastly, I'll hit quick on intent data and the email service providers. So intent data is just more insights to arm you as the OEM. You're able to look in to see, what are your customers searching for? Are they comparing prices, products? Are they searching into when warranties end? Things like that to give you better arm you in reaching out to them in a specific manner. And then email service providers and having a dedicated IP is great. It makes all of these things more scalable. So you can increase your email volume, you can mask some of your IP addresses, and you can even create different domains to send out of those ESPs where you have a specific domain that's for all your events and your event outreach. Maybe you have a specific service offering you want to track through a specific domain. All of these things, again, empowering you to better connect with that prospect pool. So with that, Colin, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Thanks, JW. So we focused a lot on the process, and then JW just wrapped up on the technology. And at the beginning, Vivek talked about it. That's really all about the people and having the right kind of people to start off this process with. We look at it as having the will over skill. You're looking for those soft skills for people who are willing to knock on doors. If the door doesn't get answered, go jump over the fence, try the back door. If that doesn't work, then open the window up, and just having that tenacity to take it from all different types of angles. And I've done a lot of hiring I wouldn't say a lot. I've been hiring for the SDR role here at Entytle, and definitely it's great to have the skill of sales and business development. But a story that sticks out to me the most is one of the last hires that we brought on with JW. Actually, the guy had a sales background, but he was selling pizza and out of the actual store itself. But then he was also doing B2B sales. Selling pizza to convenience stores, representing their brand. And he was extremely successful here. He had that mentality of let's go get it and get after it. And he has since left us, good graces, of course. And just to show you that the will on why he actually left us, he didn't leave to go to another company. He left to go start his own company as a hobby. So finding those kind of people is great to have, definitely. I know there's a lot of hiring out there and trying to fill different types of roles. I would just vouch to, yes, the skill is important, but definitely having that will, especially for this kind of sales role, also takes into consideration as well. Of course, you have to have the process first. You need buy-in from upper management to help support this. And if you want people to close your deals that you're drumming up with your business development team. And then the last piece here, you can see the bubbles have kind of shrunken. Tech, I think that it is important. It helps do a lot of different types of things like automate, help set up events like this. I'm really good at tracking different conversations, but I think it's a smaller piece of this. I mean, I can give an example of not having a sophisticated tech stack. When I started off here at Entytle, we did have a CRM with Marketo, I think, as the marketing automation tool. Vivek might be mad I didn't use it at all. I used the spreadsheet and I used LinkedIn and I used Zoom Info and made my own cadences that way. I also went out and bought like a $25, $30 a year emailing license as well to help automate some of those sequences that did have track and was highly successful in the role. I can definitely say since then, that was over 3 years ago, the team has completely grown and evolved. We have all sorts of great stuff, procedures and processes, and JW, definitely listen to this guy. He knows what he's doing when it comes to helping and scaling businesses. And of course, it's all about the people helping build those processes. So there's been multiple people aligned with that. And just kind of wrapping up with the people portion here, I think you've probably heard me talk about this some as I've spoken, is we need to move from a traditional OEM sales team where everything is siloed when it comes to the role and the data and go towards the right to a software sales team, or I'm sure there's other companies as well that, or industries as well, that follow this type of pyramid, starting off with the sales team working together, working off unified databases, and just having that proactive outreach to go win new logos or win existing business. So at the bottom, you have the business development team that both JW and I were in, finding and hunting and building and maintaining pipelines and consistently keeping our leaky bucket filled to pass those deals off to the sales team to close, and having the support from our sales manager or Vivek, the CEO here as well. And this model has worked for us, other technology companies, our customers that have used us as an install-based platform, Aftermarket CRM, to grow their own specific departments, as well as us taking this model again and using this as a service for them, where JW and I and other team members since are doing the prospecting for our customers. So it really works. I will pass this off to Vivek now to close us up here.
Thank you, Colin. Before we get any further, thanks. I was just going to ask DJ to share with us the results of the poll. So I guess the first question is, do you prospect across your installed base? The overwhelming answer is yes, is like 78%, which is really good to see. Who does a prospecting? Simple choice. Is it sales leaders? Is it nobody in marketing? That's interesting. After sales, that's good. And individual reps. You know, I think the gap in marketing, my recommendation would be, if there's a way for you guys to make marketing a critical part of your story and prospecting, please do so. It's huge. Some of the stuff that we've done, obviously the marketing activities matter. What JW talked about, the sequences, yes, he's a sales development rep, but effectively a cadence or a sequence is almost like a marketing rhythm, right? You need to set in place. So I think that gap, honestly, is a bit concerning. I would go back to the drawing board if I were you guys and take a look at this stuff. And the last one is, who closes deals, single choice resources. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. We do see all kinds of different models out here, but I think that's interesting to see that inside sales team just does maybe a third of it, 28% of it. And so it's good to see. By the way, we'll make the results of this survey available to you guys as well. So thanks a lot for that. Appreciate it. So as I try to, I'm going to stop sharing this thing. As you start trying to wrap this thing up, if there's one thing I've learned over the last 3 decades of working, and yes, I've been working for 3 decades in the industry, I am even more convinced today, based on what I've seen in my own experience, as well as what I see with many of my customers and people we talk to, that this whole skill matrix that we've all learned a long time ago is so critical. And if there's one place I would bias on heavily, it's the will aspect of it. And Colin gave this example of one of our former colleagues who, believe it or not, came from a pizza selling background. That he just had the drive and tenacity and resilience and grit to go after it. I mean, this whole notion of will is more than skill. You can train people, you can teach people, you can go take them to certain things and in terms of techniques and technology and so on and so forth. But there's absolutely no substitute for the will. So I know this sounds kind of silly coming from a technology company, but as someone who just turned 60, I think I can say that I've seen plenty of things in my life, and this willpower thing, or the will thing, is a big deal. Next slide, please, Colin. I think that kind of wraps up our story for today. We wanted to kind of just share things with you in terms of how we think, how we've seen this. I always thought about, like, Vivek, are we being presumptuous in terms of trying to share this approach with people in industry? And the short answer is not really, because I've seen both sides of the fence. I've been an industry guy for a long time. I've been in the technology world for a long time. And while we in industry have done some things extraordinarily well in terms of execution, in terms of discipline, in terms of managing costs and managing people, the technology world, by the way, has done a phenomenal job, and just not just in innovation, But this whole notion of sales and marketing, I mean, I think the best sales and marketing people honestly come from these technology companies. And if there's one thing I would urge my colleagues and friends in industry to do is go find some people from those companies and bring them onto your teams, because you'll get a big boost out of it. I'm not just saying it because obviously I'm a technology guy now, but I'm saying it because I was one of you for a long time and I see this big opportunity out here. So with that, we're open for questions. DJ, I'm going to mute the mic for here and see if there's any questions we have in the chat, or we're going to go to another mode here.
JW, I think you.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm here. I think JW had some questions that came to him.
Yeah, I got a couple that came in, and Vivek and Colin, you guys can both probably take this one. How are some of your customers handling the outbound prospecting while simultaneously handling supply chain shortages and overbooked orders?
You know what? This has been one of the biggest conundrums that many of our customers have faced, especially in the last 2 years. I cannot tell you how many people said, you know what, we've actually stopped prospecting because we can't serve the existing customers that we have today. And my question to them is, okay, that's fine. I get it. But what will happen when you solve the supply chain challenges? What are you going to do when your pipeline's empty, right? And so the more progressive, the more advanced, sophisticated customers, what they're doing is having some low level of prospecting continue on the side. And this low level of prospecting continues from things like we just mentioned. They have an inside sales team typically, right? This is not the field sales or anybody doing the prospecting, but the inside sales team. They have campaigns, they have recommendation engines that are working, like for example, with Entytle. And they do have systematic email and phone call campaigns that they set out to do, and they've done that pretty successfully. So it doesn't mean everybody's doing it in huge amounts, but the people who recognize that one day when the supply chain problems get solved, you got to go back and fill the pipeline. I'm making sure they do that today. The second thing we're doing, and this is something that Colin can maybe address quickly, is they're actually augmenting the capacity by using sometimes people like us. And Colin and our team has actually, we've done some augmentation work on behalf of our customers where we'll go out and actually prospect on their behalf. And Colin, maybe you can give a very quick 1-minute example of what you've done that might help.
Yeah, I mean, there's different flavors of how we've done it. One is just finding customers that are dormant or drifted in their minds that haven't purchased from a period of 5 years and onwards. I mean, there's other things that I talked about in the discussion when looking at different types of data from IIR to see when projects are kicking off to start selling turnaround services or start helping to bid for new equipment. And just on top of what Vivek was saying about other use cases outside of that is with Entytle, we've had some customers do what we consider an easy use case that we can deliver. It's slow moving, obsolete inventory. So stuff that's sitting on the shelf, we're able to look at customers that had purchased these parts before and then match them up with their end user customers and for them to go out and sell it to them on whatever price point. Sometimes it's a discount. And then there's the whole notion of us having predictive algorithms to help them plan in the future, so we can look at it when they'll have availability for some of these parts. Is it a month? Is it a quarter, half a year, or a year? And so then they can plan accordingly and start reaching out to customers that way as well.
Great, good question, good point. I think JW, we have time for one more question before we wrap up, because it's already 11:40. I noticed out here.
Yeah, absolutely. One more good one that came through, Vivek. What is a good starting point from scratch if I do not have a specific sales team dedicated to selling and proactive outreach?
I always use a favorite phrase I read some time ago, which is actually two phrases. One is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now, which is just another fancy way to saying just get going somehow. And the other one is like, how do you eat an elephant? One small bite at a time. So, you're not going to go figure this whole thing out right off the bat. So maybe just start with somebody's, one of your people, take some of the capacity, put it off to the side, start some prospecting exercise, go get a temporary, temp or something like that, bring her on, start that process going. You got to get that going somehow, right? You got to develop the process. You got to develop the muscle, the institutional mindset to go do it. So the point is, you got to start somewhere, start small. You don't need to go build a big team around it. Very often with some of our customers, we see that they'll actually have just one person responsible for proactive prospecting, and that's sometimes good enough to get the engine going, right? And so that's what I would say. Just get one thing going. I think DJ, that's it from our side. I think there's one more question that came at what's this? Shall we use a CRM or yeah? I think the short answer is yes or no. I think it just depends how your CRM is structured. We've seen the typical CRM we see is either Salesforce or Dynamics, even though we use HubSpot. Most of the CRMs, unfortunately, are not conditioned, if you may, to take in the complexity of the data that comes about the install base. An install base, Arno, is not just a list of all the assets that are owned by customers, but everything that happened in that account, in that customer. So you can keep track of the history. You can see what happened to that customer, what happened to that asset, and therefore you can use that to predict the next best action and next best recommendation. So what we've seen is not Dynamics and Salesforce don't necessarily work out as well, even though they have the asset object. It doesn't really function as well as you need to. So you may have to customize some things, or that's why I started Entytle, because I saw this as a huge shortcoming in the market, and so that's kind of one way to do it as well. So hopefully that answers your question, Arno.
Right. I mean, just in addition, it doesn't typically, from my experience, it doesn't contain bills of materials or different types of parts or service transactions. It'll have asset data, which I've normally seen, but on top of that, there's no analytics purpose built for manufacturers to surface some of the predictive needs that we were sharing earlier on one of the slides.
Yeah, that's the other part which I didn't answer. Thank you for that, Colin. I think JW, DJ, we're just want to make sure I'm cognizant of people's time. It's 11:43 in Austin, Texas. It's kind of late in Europe for some of the folks are calling in. Maybe this is a good time to wrap up. Thank you very much for all of you for joining the call today. There's many of you joined in. It's a pretty exciting way to kind of share some of this information with you. I thought it's important based on the experiences I had on both sides, between on the industrial side and the technology side, to kind of share some of the best practices or things we see that work. Hopefully you got something out of it. As DJ said at the beginning of the call, we will share this deck. We will share the recording to those of you who want it, and we'll follow up with that shortly. So thank you again for your time today. Appreciate it, and have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.